Yo guys, hey, what's up? It's your boy here, Ken. Talking about wrestling rumors. Probably the biggest wrestling rumor I'd say we've had all year so far. Everybody's been talking about it since the rumors or rumbling of the rumors have been hitting since Wednesday. A little bit of other things have been coming out over the last couple of days that kind of adds more fuel to the fired rumors. That I don't think no one else has talked about since then, but we're going to get into it here. So, biggest rumor, I gotta say, the stress is enough, rumor, is that AEW are in talks with both and signing both CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. Now, I guess I'll start with CM Punk first. Let's talk about CM Punk first, and then we'll move on to Daniel Bryan. Now, CM Punk, Sean from Fightful.com, who is a very valuable, reputable source. If you're a wrestling fan and you follow, any wrestling journalist outside of Dave Meltzer, Sean from Fightful.com is a reputable source. He was the one who broke the news on, I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday, that he had intel that Punk was in talks with AEW. Now, Punk was not signed, had not signed a deal with AEW, but there was heavy negotiations, talking at least, between both parties. Now, we all know, if you followed AEW since its inception, and even a little bit of CM Punk on his end, it's no surprise to anybody that AEW and CM Punk have talked before. When AEW was starting up, it's been known, it's been out there that CM Punk was one of the guys they wanted to sign right away. Wanted to be one of the first guys they signed. Things fell through because at the time, AEW was an upstart company built from the ground up. Punk wanted a lot of money. He was worth too much money for AEW to take the risk on, that they couldn't afford him, so they missed out on him. Fast forward, Punk said himself that he's had negotiations, or talks at least, with the Young Bucks and I believe Cody Rhodes, but he basically didn't like how they kind of carried themselves. Everything was kind of left through like a text, and he thought that was just kind of unprofessional to handle business via text. Then a couple months later, Cody Rhodes had spoken out and said, hey, like, you may have talked with the Bucks, but, that's new to me. I've talked with Punk, but I've never had this, conducting business over, text messaging type of thing. But if he wants to do business the right way, hey, reach out to me. So there have been talks with Punk and AEW in the past. We know that for a fact. The difference between then and now is that AEW is almost 3 years old. In their short tenure, AEW has garnered a lot of money because obviously they got Sting. And from what I've heard from, Conan, Keeping It 100 podcast, AEW are paying Sting a shit ton of, Tony Khan wrote the checkbook for Sting just to get Sting on there. So if they could afford Sting, their bank account is now must have grown, with this whole new deal with the second show and the new deal that upped their contract for when they moved Dynamite over to TBS. They've got some new money. They probably have the finances to open that checkbook for CM Punk. So that's why I think that's the difference is here. Now, you fast forward to a couple of days later. Today, I think it was brought by Ringside Cage News, another reputable source. They said that CM Punk has signed the contract today with AEW, that negotiations were reached today with CM Punk. Now, I didn't think this was, again, Ringside Cage News, they're a valuable source, but I really didn't take it as, concrete. Even Sean from Fightful.com said that, when he broke the news on Wednesday, he just said that he had a tip that they were in heavy negotiations, but that did not guarantee that Punk had signed a deal. Now, with what Ringside Kate said this morning, or yesterday morning actually. What tipped the my belief that he probably has signed was that it was noticed that the Cult of Personality, Living Colour, the band who sang the song Cult of Personality, CM Punk's theme song, they followed AEW on Twitter. And Living Colour, this is their official Twitter handler, followed AEW on Twitter. That band is not following AEW on Twitter for no apparent reason. That leads me to believe Punk is probably signed with AEW, hands down. When I saw that this morning, when that news came out this morning, there's something to that for sure. Now, do I think CM Punk is a good get? Absolutely. At a time right now where you can say there's not really a lot of mega big stars, that's out there and as a free agent, CM Punk is probably close, and Daniel Bryan to his own right. Those are like the only guys that you can really think that can come close to that. Does AEW need CM Punk? No. Does he add something to their brand? Oh yes, absolutely. Let's look at it this way. CM Punk was a big star in WWE. Yes, he's been gone from the wrestling world for about 7 years. However, Punk still has a very dedicated fan base. I'm a Chicagoan. I'm one of those people that followed Punk for years. Punk is one of those guys I have followed before his, WWE career and even before his Ring of Honor career. He was one of those guys I followed closely for a long, long time as a teenager growing up. So for them to have Punk, if they can get Punk, that'd be huge. And you look at, the timing of this, AEW's got Dynamite, their second show, Rampage, and All Out. All 3 shows are going to be here in Chicago. You can't tell me that Punk is not going to show up on one of those shows. I mean, if not the Dynamite leading up to that pay-per-view, definitely on that pay-per-view. What a ginormous pop would that be? It can't be a coincidence. It just can't be. Now, my concern with Punk is a very difficult guy. It's no surprise to anybody that Punk's an asshole. CM Punk's an asshole. What you see with him is what you get. He's very outspoken. He's free to speak his mind. He is a guy who also doesn't really mind rubbing people the wrong way. That's just how he is. His attitude has always been like that, even prior coming into WWE. Punk's an asshole. That's his attitude. So, and with the type of, kind of you could say friendly, positive environment or atmosphere that AEW has set in their locker room, I kind of wonder sometimes, can Punk really coexist with a lot of people, or can some people handle Punk's hot-headedness? That's the only concern I have when it comes to having CM Punk in the locker room, being signed by AEW. Can he keep his cool and cool his jets and play well with everyone? That's, I guess, is for lack of a better term. Can Punk play well with others? That's the only thing. Now you also have to think about the other side of the spectrum. Punk's age, ring experience. Again, the dude's been out for 7 years. There's going to be some ring rust, absolutely. But you also have to figure, age-wise, Punk's 42 years old. Punk is physically, outside of his, his tenure in UFC, Punk hasn't really faced like any career injury, life bodily injury harm, at all. He's not like Edge where, he had to leave the business because he broke his neck, or Daniel Bryan at one point because he, had a concern of a concussion and whatnot. That wasn't Punk's case. Punk just left because he was beaten, banged up, but he was also tired, and his passion for the business was pretty much dead because WWE just sucked the life out of him. But other than that, I would think Punk would physically be in good in-ring condition, good shape. Second, Punk's 42 years old. In wrestling, 42 is like 35 for wrestlers. I mean, like, let's be real. 42-year-old Punk is vastly different than having a 62-year-old Sting in the ring, or even a 47-year-old Edge. Those 5 to 10 years in age difference, it makes a difference for wrestlers. It really does. So 42 right now, if they were ever going to sign Punk at the age of 42, now's the good time to get him. So I think Punk will be a huge gift for AEW. Definitely, I would say, would be their biggest talent acquisition since Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose, to me, I still think was like the best talent acquisition, because at the time that he came, it sent shockwaves through the wrestling world to say, like, hey, AEW are serious. Punk will help solidify AEW seriousness, and that AEW are here to stay. They're 3 years old, but they're serious. They're big time. Now, that was CM Punk. Fast forward over here to Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan, news of Daniel Bryan already confirmed to have made a deal with the company, broke out, I think, the day before the CM Punk stuff broke out. This came from Body Slam, a journalist of the wrestling website Body Slam. I didn't know that company's credentials all that well, but Sean from Fightful vouched for that journalist's credentials and journalism, and being very accurate in his news source. The website to bodyslam.com crashed. It crashed because of the news of Daniel Bryan joining AEW. If they can get Daniel Bryan, or if they already got Daniel Bryan, that is another solid get for AEW. Daniel Bryan, one of the best, to me, in my opinion, technical wrestlers in the last 10 years ever. Daniel Bryan was a big star in WWE. Regardless of people not being a fan of him, Daniel Bryan was a big star in WWE. The Yes Movement was big. Multiple World Heavyweight Champion. Daniel Bryan's had some top key feuds within the company. Daniel Bryan's a smart guy, really, in general. Like, I think he can bring good in-ring psychology and just a lot of creative things. I mean, we've seen when he was a booker for SmackDown. Some of the things that he was doing, again, vouching for, the Big E push and the Cesaro push, that was all Daniel Bryan. Imagine Daniel Bryan doing something like that for the younger AEW talent. He's an asset, not only just in the ring, but just outside the ring, behind the stage. Daniel Bryan is a huge asset, I personally think. And just recently, Daniel Bryan was in the main event of WrestleMania for a heavyweight title. Triple threat, a great match. And then, 2 weeks later, had another outstanding singles match with Roman Reigns and a title rematch. So, his last stint, you could say his last run in WWE, even though he didn't win a world title or anything like that, he was heavily featured in the program, and he was main eventing. Like I said, he main event WrestleMania. He's main event WrestleMania before in times past, but in his recent stint in WWE, he just came off of WrestleMania, and then the world title match, and then followed up again with another world title match that was excellent. So, him coming off of WWE television, Bryan's definitely got some momentum, for sure. And for the website that broke the news of him already signed with AEW, made the site crash, that should tell you something there. Now, I don't know how much of a draw with Daniel Bryan and a CM Punk would move the needle for AEW ratings-wise. I think it would be a huge bump. Not a huge bump, let me say this. I think they will see a bump, but I don't know how big that bump would be. We'll have to see. But it definitely will be interesting to see, for Daniel Bryan at least, what numbers he can move, considering he was just on WWE television about a couple months ago in high key profiling matches and storylines, and see him transition over to the other side and playing for the other team. That'll be very interesting to see. So, and AEW also have that huge New York TV show episode of Dynamite that they got in September 15th. They got going on in September. So, I mean, if AEW can snag, and look, before I forget, Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez just had an interview with Kenny Omega talking about the very thing that everybody's been talking about. AEW in talks and signing with CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. They talked to Kenny Omega. Like, the talks of, or the possibilities of Punk and Bryan being signed to AEW, just the momentum, everything that I've mentioned in this video up until this point, it can't be smoke and mirrors. Where there's smoke, there's some fire to it. Alvarez and Dave Meltzer had an interview with Kenny Omega talking about these very rumors, and Kenny Omega is one-fourth of the VPs of the company. Now, Kenny Omega did not say, well, yeah, we signed these guys, or yeah, we were in negotiations with them. It was just a clip that I haven't seen the whole interview, but the snippet of the interview was just basically Omega, talking about how great these guys are, and he would love to wrestle them if given the opportunity or the chance. But he didn't deny, nor did he admit, that there was some negotiation there between the company and these two talents, and AEW acquiring Punk and Bryan. So again, just little things like that. Man, like I said, if AEW can get Daniel Bryan and bring back a returning CM Punk, I think having those two would definitely solidify and say AEW are a strong number 2 alternative competitor, and they're here to play. They are here to play, and they're serious. And Tony Khan is serious. AEW might not be for everybody, and that's okay. But I'm loving this. I'm loving this for sure. Next week, Tony Khan's supposed to have a huge, reveal or surprise or whatever next week on Dynamite. Who knows? He might make the announcement for Daniel Bryan there. That'll be shocking if he does do it there and not like build it up or something. But these are just my thoughts, guys, on this. I try not to make this video too long, but I mean, I just had to get all these points out and get these thoughts out talking about these two wrestlers here, because these would be huge gets for AEW, hands down. You guys let me know what you think about the possibility of Daniel Bryan and CM Punk being inked to AEW. What are your thoughts on this? What kind of dream matches or just fantasy matches would you like to see these two have with the AEW roster? Are your thoughts in the box below? Do yourself a favor, hit that like button and subscribe. Peace out.